Back to the transfer portal. Got to talk about it. Portal season is here. It's not going anywhere. In fact, it's just turning up the knob a little bit. So with players announcing their intentions to transfer, graduate transfers already in the portal, what does your favorite team need to do? Who should they go after? More specifically, what are some of their needs? I'm going to break that right down for the Tennessee Volunteers because they had a really good season this year. They're going to play for a New Year's Six Bowl. Hendon Hooker really should have won the Heisman Trophy, should at least be considered for the Heisman Trophy still. Josh Heupel has built a program there. With that being said, there's still some areas of concern for me, at least, for them to have the kind of year they had this year, next year. So I've got a couple areas of concern. I'll rephrase that. A couple areas I want to see shored up for Tennessee going into 2023. First and foremost, the secondary. This is not a surprise. I think a lot of Tennessee fans would echo this same sentiment because there's got to be improvement in personnel. 284 yards a game allowed last year. Now, there's other factors baked into that, given how much they were on the field, given how much teams were throwing against them because they were down with Hendon Hooker in the offense going like 4 plays every second. Like, there's still some things baked into that stat, but the bottom line is the defensive secondary, the back end, needs to get better for them to be successful. Now, they have 6 newcomers. They lose Trayvon Flowers. Outside of that, everybody else comes back. So the question I would ask the coaching staff and the fan base is, do you feel good about who you already have in-house? And if you don't, do you feel good playing one of those freshmen? My thought process is, it can't hurt to add some competition. It can't hurt to add some experience into that side of things. At the very worst case, you play a freshman who you think is ready to play right now. That's great. Nothing against that. A lot of freshmen hit the ground running, especially with today's age of sports science and being able to show up on campus already looking like a college athlete. That's a real thing. That's fine. But to raise the floor of what that room could be, I think you would benefit from adding a couple of guys at least into that room to shore up the experience and to shore up what you can be. Because that was the Achilles heel a couple of times. I mean, look at the South Carolina game. That really was the weak link that Spencer Rattler and company just kind of took advantage of. So the secondary, for my money, needs to be shored up. I have confidence they will do that when the portal gets really, really rolling. Got to have the athleticism to play one-on-one. Kind of the game that we're in right now in college football. Really quick, if you have not yet subscribed to the channel, we would love to have you at the party. Also, follow me on the social channels at JD Piquel on Twitter and on Instagram. A ton of Tennessee faithful already joined us here. Subscribe to the channel that we have had a phenomenal time going back and forth with the chat in. And again, if you haven't joined us, no time like the present. We'd love to have you here. The defensive line is the next spot that I'm looking. Well, you said, JD, the defensive line, the linebacking group and the D line was really solid last year. I 100% agree. Top 20 rush defense in the country. 3.3 yards a carry, good for top 15. Allowed a little over 100 yards a game. That's really solid. They have some youth they're excited about. They got some guys they're returning. However, you lose some juice on the edge. Byron Young, he's gone. And this is not an area in the SEC, being the trenches. In the SEC, you can't be just getting there. You can't go into a season in the Southeastern Conference and say, yeah, we'll see about the front 7. No. You don't want to be holding your breath waiting to see during the year if they're going to be able to hold up to the test. Again, experience, at the very least, increases competition and raises the floor of what that unit's going to be. I'm not saying you got to go get 4 or 5-star guys that can just, replace the entire defensive line for you. I'm just saying, let's shore up some of those areas where we lose a Byron Young or where we can add some more juice in the middle or where we can have more of a pass rush presence. It's already a solid unit. But if you can, again, add some depth to that defensive line, because it's a long season in the SEC, one of the most physical conferences in the country, if not the most physical, you would just feel better about your chances when you do get into November, having more health. Depth equals health. Health equals wealth. You feel me? So go get yourself some defensive linemen. Now, the tight end position. You lose Princeton Fant. Accounted for 8 touchdowns last year. That's a mix of his rushing numbers. He had 5 or 6 rushing touchdowns and his receiving production. The reason why this is so important is because, one, behind Princeton Fant, you don't have anybody else that you feel good about, likely, or anybody with real experience. The second thing is, in this offense for Josh Heupel, they do so much to stretch you out as a defense. They line up as far as possible to the tick marks of the sideline, and as a defense, you have to honor that. So you put your linebacker 10 yards away from the play. You put your safety all the way out towards the hash mark, if not even farther past the hash mark. So what does that do? When the defense is spread out, guess what's open? The middle of the field. Guess who in football is supposed to dominate the middle of the field in the pass game? The tight end. So go get yourself a phenomenal presence over the middle. Doesn't need to be a burner, doesn't need to be a Travis Kelce kind of guy, but be somebody who can make you pay over the middle and who can be a matchup problem for linebackers. Because more often than not, that's who they're going to be matched up against at Tennessee. Tight end on a linebacker. Find someone who can consistently win in the pass game there. If they can be an attached guy and help block as well, that's a huge bonus. But I think being a middle of the field open receiving threat is what I would really want if I'm Josh Heupel and company, because there will be cash to be gotten over the middle. When the shot is there, get someone who can make them pay. It's huge. So the tight end position, somewhere else I would look if I'm Tennessee. So the last position that I'm looking at is the receiver group. They were phenomenal this year, right? I mean, tons of huge plays came through Jalin Hyatt, came through Cedric Tillman. Both those guys are likely gone to the NFL. McCoy, a guy who I believe is coming back. Ramel Keaton, it sounds like, is also coming back. Remains to be seen. Squirrel White. Even with that being said, I think you need somebody who can be your burner on the outside. Now, Ramel Keaton has been that at times when he's seen action in limited time, and Squirrel White has also been, serviceable there. But I would just love to see them add another big play kind of wide receiver. Because Jalin Hyatt did a lot of things this past year just with his speed, just popping the top on the defense, winning that one-on-one matchup, and making you pay for having to go man coverage on the outside for how much they stretch out the defense. Two guys that I'm looking at. I don't know if they're the same speed as a Jalin Hyatt, which is a lot to ask for, but two big play wide receivers I'm looking at that I'd love to see Tennessee get is Trayshawn Holden from Alabama and Theo Weiss Jr. from Oklahoma. Two of those guys have had flashes during their college career, but I think if they were to come to a really wide receiver friendly, pass game friendly offense at Tennessee under Josh Heupel, I think they could take that next step. So two guys that I'm watching for Tennessee, but as a whole, that position group I think needs to have a little bit more oomph added to it. They've got good players in it already. I'm not saying it's the worst thing in the world if you don't add somebody, but if you want to have the same kind of offensive results you had last year, I think you need to make sure that room stays as tooled as it was a season ago. So to recap, the secondary, let's add some more guys, add some experience, add some depth. Can't be giving up 284 yards through the air again. Can't have that be your average per game. Goes without saying. Defensive line, in the SEC, health is wealth, and depth is a great way to keep health consistent, right? Keep guys fresh. Really good unit season to go. Would love to see them add some more juice on the edge with Byron Young gone. So that'll be huge. Princeton Fant, the tight end, he's gone. Somebody else has to be that presence over the middle for Tennessee. There's going to be a lot of big plays to be gotten. That's something you can pitch if you're Tennessee and say, come make some big plays for us here. It's huge. It's a huge, huge need because there will be a lot of big plays on the outside, stretch out the defense, a lot of opportunity for the tight end position. So keep an eye on that. Then lastly, speaking of the outside, you lose some good wide receivers. I think it's a place that's very easy to market for wide receivers that are transferring or looking for somewhere else to play. Come be a part of that Tennessee wide receiver room. Put up big numbers. You saw what Cedric Tillman did. You saw what Jalin Hyatt did. Come be that next guy for us. Come step in for us and help us recreate what we did in 2022. New quarterback in Joe Milton, more likely than not. Come catch some deep passes. Come have a nice 15 to 18 yards per catch average. I think it sells itself, but I think there needs to be some sort of upgrade in that room. So the Tennessee Vols, going to be an attractive spot for a number of reasons, NIL being one of them, but I think when it comes to potential of that program, they're a couple position groups away from being really special and having another phenomenal year in 2023. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.